2025 was a wild ride.
While events and trends came and went, one thing that never changed was my love for watching movies. In fact, I think the world is watching movies more and more as streaming becomes uber accessible, Letterboxd becomes ever popular, and social media pushes the medium more. I watched 86 films throughout 2025, some at home, some in theaters, some with friends, some by myself. Some were new releases while others were from before World War II. Some were in English, some were foreign, and they ranged from art house to action to comedy to mystery. Of course, some were great while others were anything but, so it's my goal today to discuss which features captured my awe and which flicks fell flat. I'll be ranking every movie I watched in 2025 from worst to best, with a few rules to facilitate my ratings. Firstly, I've disallowed shorter films, which I've determined to be anything under an hour. I've also made the choice to include documentaries, as the filmmaking process applies just as much to these works as they do to fictitious films. On top of ranking every movie I watched in 2025, I'll display separate ratings for every movie released in 2025, as well as every feature I watched for my Middle Eastern and North African cinema class. Lastly, there'll be some spoilers ahead. And oh yeah, don't get too butthurt over my opinions. This list is subjective and all, and I watched a lot of acclaimed movies. They can't all be number one, you know? With that out of the way, let's kick it. The first Megamind movie, which should really just be referred to as the Megamind movie, is a creative subversion of the superhero genre. It's enjoyable for kids, but has enough layers for an adult to watch with their kids. Megamind vs. the Doom Syndicate is none of what the first movie is. The writing is lazy, nonsensical, and missing critical parts of narrative structure. The animation, my god, is more jarring than the shittiest Adult Swim show you can think of. I expect better out of a first-year college student studying 3D animation. The worst part of the whole movie is its disconnection to the previous installment. Will Ferrell and Tina Fey did not reprise their roles, and Minion's name is changed to Old Chum. It's just such a far departure from the original Megamind. Being a white guy complicates my feelings about Norbit. I see a lot of the film's humor as offensive and playing into black stereotypes, especially jokes revolving around the angry black women Rasputia. Yeah, I don't even know if I'm the best person to talk about these issues. What I can say about Norbit is that the set design stinks, most of the performances are weak, and most damning of all, it's not funny. There's maybe 2 jokes I laughed at, which for a comedy movie that throws gag after gag at the wall is pathetic. Watching a movie like Norbit without laughing is like celebrating 4th of July without fireworks and alcohol and hot dogs. It just sucks. The movie does have a few merits though. The soundtrack isn't half bad, and the editing's decent. Still, do not waste your time on this flick. Knight of Cups has so many issues, most rooting from the concept. There's literally no plot. It's fine to have a very simple plot, but no plot is unacceptable for a movie. It's a pretty film, yet when combined with its dog narrative, it makes a series of moving artworks and not a coherent film. The use of voiceover in this flick serves more as a crutch for inept storytelling instead of adding to the film's events. The voiceover and lack of plot add to the movie's liminality, but the issue is that the space violates this liminality. The setting feels like nowhere, but we are told time and time again through the palm trees and the Warner Brothers studio and the beach that we are in Los Angeles. This movie is not nowhere and nothing like it tries to be, but it's not enough to be anything either. At least Christian Bale's acting is pretty good, if only he got more lines. 2025's a Minecraft movie is a dream come true for the small bit of my younger self still within me, and I'm thankful they mostly adhered to the source material. With woodland mansions, creeper farms, a Technoblade tribute, and more, there was a lot for the die-hard fan to unpack. But that's where the good stops with this movie. The writing is terrible, the acting doesn't help, the plot kinda sucks, the main villain is boring, certain scenes and dialogue are nonsensical, and so on. Hell, the end dimension isn't featured at all despite being how you beat the game. I will give a shout out to the animation, which doesn't look great at times, but looks good enough given how hard it is to nail the aesthetic. I still enjoyed watching the Minecraft movie because of how impactful the game was on my childhood, yet I wish they truly did the game justice. Nicolas Cage is gonna drink himself to death. But wait, here comes a prostitute to save his life. This is one of many films on this list that follows the older man, female prostitute dynamic, and it got boring after Pretty Woman. I think what Mike Figgis was going for with Leaving Las Vegas was a deep dive into the psyche of a broken, older man, but it just falls flat. This is not the story of a man, of men, of alcoholics, or of any class of people. It is a story about Las Vegas. The constant B-roll footage of Vegas we're exposed to takes away from the individual narratives of our characters, instead asserting that this is just how Las Vegas is. In this way, the editing takes away the characters from the character-driven narrative. I don't think Nicolas Cage or Elizabeth Shue did a particularly bad job in their roles. It's rather that the writing fails them, particularly Shue, whose character's motivations do not get adequately addressed. The Girl Next Door fits squarely within a series of American comedy movies designed to be raunchy, but oftentimes the jokes don't land and the performances are subpar. This film is the poster child for this genre at its worst. For a movie chock full of jokes that only 14-year-olds find funny, it's critical that the plot surrounds a porn star, high schoolers making sex ed videos, and portrayals of kidnapping. These themes could be more forgivable if tailored to an older audience, but it's clearly not. The Girl Next Door is a worse risky business, a movie not without its faults, but one that treats its adult themes with more delicacy than The Girl Next Door. This movie also doesn't have a Tom Cruise performance to save it. I actually think Emile Hirsch does a good job selling the sex-curious kid, but I never buy his character as a studious high achiever like I do with Cruise's character in Risky Business. Timothy Olyphant plays the antagonist Kelly, who lacks any realism. He looks and acts like a Looney Tunes villain, really. This movie is just not good. Soldiers of Conscience is a somewhat interesting documentary I watched for a war ethics class. It provides different perspectives on the debate over conscientious objection, which is interesting, but it's hard to look past its poor production value. Soldiers of Conscience is designed as an educational tool. It's great for what it is, but it's far from entertaining media. Ernest Hemingway was not the best person. He was anti-Semitic, terrible to the women in his life, and may have been working for the KGB. The HBO original Hemingway and Gellhorn does a great job portraying Hemingway's problematic characteristics, but it doesn't do any more than that. For a movie titled Hemingway and Gellhorn, there isn't enough development of Martha Gellhorn's character. I get that Hemingway was this larger-than-life man, but if you wanted to focus on him, the movie should have never included Gellhorn. All the movie does is create the appearance that Martha Gellhorn's life was solely made by Hemingway's presence, which isn't true. There are also some ridiculous-ass moments in this film, such as Hemingway and Gellhorn having sex in the middle of a firebombing. It's better to read Hemingway or read a historical account on Hemingway and Gellhorn's love if you want information on their relationship. The first feature film ever produced in Israel, and a poor one at that. The pacing is all over the place, as scenes of battle last way too long, and scenes between Finnegan, Goodman, Esther, and David are too short to feel constructive. The movie is primarily composed of 3 vignettes, and while the first one is actually a lot of fun and gives insight into Israeli-British relations of the time, the second and third vignettes are a bore. Even the plot section for the Wikipedia page really only mentions the first story in detail. The conclusion of Hill 24 doesn't answer feels so derived from the crux of the movie that there's absolutely zero closure to the stories at hand. The aliens in Galaxy Quest are so goddamn annoying. Like, I get that's the point, but watching them on screen is irritating. The human characters are grating too, from the unlikable Jason Nesmith to the sterile Sir Alexander Dane. I have to admit that I haven't seen Star Trek, the main show that Galaxy Quest parodied, so maybe the characters are faithful to those from the show. If they are, I think my point stands that the protagonists need to be slightly likable at the least. On the bright side, some of the sets are pretty cool. I loved how they depicted the desert planet. I think it's just sick. The main villain, Saris, is also pretty dope. He reminds me a lot of the various alien antagonists from Doctor Who, a show I have a lot of love for. Galaxy Quest is ultimately like Spaceballs, but for Star Trek fans. If you don't know the source material, you're probably not going to enjoy it as much as others.
Before you click off the video and say something terrible about me in the comments, just hear me out. I don't find The Big Lebowski funny, and that's kind of the whole point of the film. I didn't connect with the dude whose lackadaisical and give no F's attitude drives the film. A lot of the jokes are also banter-based between the dude and others, and they just didn't hit for me, especially when characters like Maud and Uli don't get enough character development. I think the abstract dream sequences are super entertaining and easily the best part of the film because they keep the energy the Coen brothers were going for while actually being interesting. I'll have to give The Big Lebowski another try, but right now it'll have to remain on my shit list.
A War is a Danish film with 2 halves, the first being a Danish unit's fight against terrorist forces in Afghanistan, and the second surrounding a trial back in Denmark for the improper protocol carried out against those terrorists. Similar to how I feel about Paths of Glory and even Oppenheimer, the trial part is the best part of the film, with A War's courtroom scenes being more emotional and personal. That being said, the first half of the movie isn't great. Additionally, the transition between the war itself and the trial is off-putting, both in writing and editing. I wish the movie had fleshed out its soundtrack more, and maybe even used the trial as a frame narrative similar to the video game Persona 5. Another well-regarded movie I diverge from the public on is Almost Famous. Billy Crudup and Kate Hudson give good performances as Russell Hammond and Penny Lane specifically, but the acting of protagonist William Miller is abysmal. Flowers are given to this film for its use of diegetic sound, but I wasn't huge on the music itself. As for the story, the movie slots itself into the nerdy guy who falls for a manic pixie dream girl plot, but the flick doesn't do enough to define itself outside of this framework. Another thing I don't see mentioned is the implied sexual assault of Will, which just seems unnecessary. I'm fine with portrayals of sensitive topics in the film, but it has to add something. In this case, it just doesn't.
Honora has too much sex. And before you comment saying that it contributes to the thesis of the movie or that Honora is a stripper so it just makes sense, I'm not advocating for no sex. It just happens too frequently in the front half of the movie. And for a film that's strongest point is its delivery of dialogue, sex scenes only take away from what's good. Additionally, I don't think the movie gives the proper time the audience needs to understand Ani and Igor's relationship, which made the ending a little quizzical for me. Honora is great conceptually, but it focuses on the wrong thing over 3 hours. Bashu the Little Stranger is a heartwarming tale set in the backdrop of war-torn Iran, but quickly does a lot to divorce itself from the context, which hurts the movie overall.
The acting itself is strong, but I think Bashu's character is poorly written because it doesn't adequately address the trauma of losing his family. That being said, the meshing of cultures, people, and the acceptance of Bashu into a new rural community makes the movie touching. Here's the thing. The plot structure of the new Fantastic Four movie is way off. The whole crew goes all the way to space, gets terrorized by the Silver Surfer, confronts the main antagonist of the movie, and then they go back, all before the 1 hour mark. From that point on, nothing else can live up to what we've already seen, including the climax. Because of that, a majority of the movie was just boring to me. The chemistry on screen between our Fantastic Four is varied, with the Thing and Human Torch getting along well with their co-stars while Mr. Fantastic and Sue Storm don't. I think the issue isn't the performances, but the fact that the writing makes our protagonist a little stiff. Finally, the movie's retro aesthetic is jaw-dropping, but not enough to salvage the poor plot and writing. Somehow, the pacing of Red Eye is pretty slow despite totaling just 85 minutes of runtime. I think that the movie's second act is at fault for this, as it stretches a small amount of content over 30 minutes. The acting of Rachel McAdams and Cillian Murphy is superb throughout that time, but the events are still too elongated. For a story that focuses primarily on McAdams and Murphy, it features weird cuts to other characters that makes you think these people are integral to the plot, which they aren't. It ends up feeling like these characters are wasted potential. The final act is interesting, but once again too long. Also, the layout of Lisa's house makes absolutely no sense. At least it has Survivor legend Colby Donaldson leading a security detail. It really pains me to rank Relay this low because most of the movie is amazing, but the end is absolutely awful. The feature builds up this genuine, personable relationship between main characters Ash and Sarah that defies the situation they're in. It establishes the enemies, their MO, their goals. The film makes you think about the skills that our protagonists and antagonists have, how they play off each other, who has leverage and whatnot. And out of nowhere, the movie destroys everything it has built with one plot twist. The plot twist doesn't even make sense because it makes many of the scenes preceding it nonsensical. Ultimately, an important aspect of storytelling is making listening worth it. If you betray the audience, they'll feel cheapened out of a proper story, which is what happens with Relay. This film would likely be around number 15 on this list if the ending was slightly competent, because the movie does do a ton right, including acting, cinematography, script, and more. West Beirut is a post-war reflection on conflict in Lebanon, and while the subject matter is fascinating, the movie isn't the best. I like the way the narrative addresses the Lebanese civil war, but it's hard to get invested into the film's personal narratives because the acting isn't good. The middle of the movie is super slow as well, but that's also the function of a captivating beginning and end. The way that West Beirut ends is equally mind-blowing and soul-crushing, and easily the most memorable part of this flick. One of my favorite TV shows is Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and my favorite character is Detective Jake Peralta, played by Andy Samberg. The movies that he's appeared in are middling at best, and Pop Star Never Stop Never Stopping is no different. The mockumentary style of the film is a lot of fun and meshes well with the SNL style of humor, but the issue is that a lot of the jokes are dated, with only a few punchlines truly hitting in 2025. The songs aren't funny like intended, but weirdly a little catchy. It is enjoyable to see guest stars from SNL alums and other pop culture figures. Popstar, though, is undoubtedly a function of its time. Okay, so I have a lot of explaining to do with this one. While I'm already not super receptive to the fantasy genre, the first Lord of the Rings movie has a few problems that undermine the film. There's this amazing, big ensemble cast full of different figures, but the carrying capacity of the film can't hold all of these characters, even over 3 hours. And that's the catch-22, right? That Frodo is the main character, but he's surrounded by many others. You either have to give development to Frodo and not the others, or vice versa. I would have also liked to know more about Mordor and the villain. I just feel like we didn't get enough, and it might take watching every Lord of the Rings film to understand the gravitas of the situation. The best parts of the flick are the world building, which is absolutely jaw-dropping, as well as the easy-to-follow 3-act structure of the plot, although it's pretty slow. The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, is just not for me. Journey to the Sun tells the story of two friends, one Turkish, one Kurdish, and how their ethnicities affect their daily lives. My guilty pleasure in cinema is pop, jazz, rock, or classical music, essentially anything in the American mainstream, but I still love the Turkish music employed throughout the film. I also thought that the casting of Journey to the Sun was fascinating, as a darker-skinned actor played a Turkish man, bringing forth questions of perceived identity versus actual identity. The pacing in the back half of this flick is snail-like, as we move from the hustle and bustle of the city towards the countryside. It's a transition that the script and actors don't handle well, making it a slow drag after a compelling first half. Under the Skin of the City is nothing mind-blowing, but there are some interesting plot lines. Eldest son Abbas's routine kept me the most entertained, splitting time between courting an office worker and saving up to move to Japan. The mother Tuba also undergoes an interesting arc that amounts to nothing, showcasing a symbolic stagnation that was eye-opening. There's not a lot of flash with this one, and I found myself uninterested during parts of the movie due to narrative or acting or whatnot. Adam Sandler stars in some great movies, Seth Rogen has some fun projects, but the two humors do not mix.
Even when characters Ira Wright and George Simmons are waxing, the chemistry is just not there, and the jokes that have potential definitely show their age. I do like the depth of George Simmons, who is a worse yet more intelligent person than most other Sandler characters. Aubrey Plaza and Jason Schwartzman also have great moments throughout the film. The plot slots into an era of Sandler's filmography that just blends together, no pun intended, but movies like Blended and Just Go With It are a bit funnier. The newest installment of the Knives Out franchise has a few fatal flaws. Wake Up Dead Man's biggest issue is its supporting cast, which, outside of Cy and Martha, don't get developed enough. Science fiction writer Lee Ross and cellist Simone Vivon are just along for the ride. Giving them a bigger role in the plot would have made Wake Up Dead Man way more enticing. This installment is also Daniel Craig's weakest as Benoit Blanc. Part of it is the acting, but also that Benoit's reveals a giant asshole that feels contrary to what we've seen on screen. One performance I do love is Josh O'Connor's as Father Judd, a complex character whose presence is elevated by how O'Connor plays Judd so earnestly and emotionally. Additionally, the church setting is conceptually interesting, and faith as a driver of motivation adds a unique layer to the mystery genre. Wake Up Dead Man proves that there's still a lot working with the Knives Out franchise, and we'll likely have another film to talk about in 3 or so years. I've lightened up on The Hateful Eight, a movie I felt was ruined by poor pacing and unnecessary cinematic devices. On rewatch, the pacing isn't terrible, but a little slow. The narration that explains Domergue's secret was frustrating the first time I watched The Hateful Eight, and even more frustrating now. If you've ever taken a writing class, you've heard the phrase show, don't tell. Yet Tarantino tells us himself that the coffee's been poisoned. He steals away the audience's opportunity to experience the poisoning for themselves, which makes me ask, why the hell am I watching this movie instead of reading a book? The movie is saved by the excellent performances of Samuel L. Jackson, Kurt Russell, and Bruce Dern. Ennio Morricone's score, like always with Tarantino movies, is great, and the best part of the movie is the cinematography. The Hateful Eight is the most beautiful Tarantino film, but unfortunately it's just a little slow and tries to be too cute. Setting aside questionable depictions of Cubans and Russians, you gotta admit, conceptually, Red Dawn is cool as hell. A group of Colorado high school boys form a guerrilla group to fight against a Soviet invasion of Middle America. On paper it sounds amazing, but the execution isn't. The fight scenes are cool, sure, but they're homogenous. Once you've seen the first and second altercations, the rest feel like a blur. There's no character development for any of our warriors, only leader Patrick Swayze and his younger brother played by Charlie Sheen, as well as downed Air Force member Andy. Neither of the Mason girls feel consequential to the story, which hurts the elongated death scene of Tony, who I knew nothing about. On the plus side, the cinematography is amazing. There are so many diverse, sublime shots of the Rockies that bring forth an irony. How could a war take place somewhere so peaceful? Red Dawn had a lot of potential but never catches its stride. I'd love to see it remade, the right way. Election takes possibly the most milquetoast story, a student council election in the Midwest, and injects life into every ounce. The narrative is unpredictable, the editing is unforgettable, it's just a lot of fun. The movie certainly dictates how you should feel about the characters by flanderizing them, with Tracy Flick being the insufferable goody two-shoes and Paul Metzler being the lovable jock. What sucks is that each character's ending is unsatisfying, with Tracy making out the best, while Jim, Paul, and Tammy don't get what we want for them. Essentially, Tracy is built to be so unlikable that when she succeeds and Jim doesn't, it's disappointing even though we know Jim was in the wrong. Also, a few of the adults fantasize and romance students, making the film uncomfortable to watch at times. It's hard to talk about Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me without mentioning the TV show that this film serves as a prequel to. Fire Walk with Me is different from the series, stylistically brighter yet somehow more topically horrific. Watching this film is like getting shot, especially when the original series builds the legend of main character Laura Palmer as much as it does. Cheryl Lee does a great job in the protagonist role, but a lot of the performances surrounding her are shaky. Bobby, Miss Palmer, Harold, all of these characters just come across flat without prior context. I also can't stand the switch in actor for Donna away from Lara Flynn Boyle. The movie ends up raising more questions than it answers, needlessly introducing Chet Desmond and Philip Jeffries, the latter of whom is funnily enough played by David Bowie. If I couldn't have watched Twin Peaks The Return right after, these introductions would have lost me. Essentially, core concepts of the movie didn't make sense for 25 years, which is unacceptable even for David Lynch. Death Proof has charm, style, and way too many shots of feet. Tarantino himself has gone on record calling Death Proof his worst movie, and while I don't think it's his best, I can't deny there's something special about it. The movie pays homage to grindhouse cinema of the 1970s, and that leads to some fun directorial choices. What I am a huge fan of is the cut to 7 or 8 different views of Mike the stuntman's first crash. It's just dope as hell. I think the stylistics can be a little much at times, but most of the directorial choices make this love letter that much sweeter. By function of its concept, Death Proof's plot is a bit underbaked, and again, there's too many feet shots. That being said, I'll remember this movie for its nostalgia, stylistics, and simplicity. Yeah, the first Wicked and Wizard of Oz are better movies, but Wild at Heart has so much more aura. Nicolas Cage gives the performance of a lifetime as the Elvis-inspired Sailor Ripley, and Laura Dern's Lula is the perfect partner in crime. I've been finding myself quoting Sailor and the Good Witch's interaction at the end of the movie so much, it's just iconic. On the David Lynch weirdness scale, it gets up there, with some of the insolite moments being manageable while others being what the F moments. Like the roadside death scene or Lula's mom covering herself in red lipstick, it can just be a bit much at times. The sex scenes also range from meaningful and passion-filled to confusing. Finally, the plot leaves much to be desired. Each locale only feels like a step towards the end destination, which is fine, yet the payoff never comes. There is an undeniable swagger with Wild at Heart, but sometimes the substance just isn't present.
A grandiose production, the most expensive in Egypt's long history of filmmaking, the Yakubian building is full of drama, social commentary, action, and just about anything else you can think of. Issues such as homosexuality, Islamic fundamentalism, class, gender, terrorism, and more are discussed and given an opportunity to fester, which was rare for Egyptian cinema during the 2000s. There's a huge cast that largely receives the development they deserve, although some of the plot lines are more interesting than others. I didn't particularly care for the stories of Muhammad Azam and Taha, the former's tale focusing on his drug empire in a manner too discreet, and the latter not being developed enough in general. These are small complaints, however, and I would recommend the Yakubian building as a good first watch for people looking for a bridge into modern Egyptian cinema. The second Madagascar film fixes the issues of the first movie while simultaneously undermining what makes the first movie great. A few of the jokes are funny, but they don't hit like the quick-witted lines of the first movie. The plot of the first Madagascar movie is, in a way, a quasi-road trip movie, while the second remains in one place for most of the story, that place not even being Madagascar. It makes the plot feel a little stagnant and antithetical compared to the story of the first. Flowers are due, however. The animation of the second film is much better than the first, and King Julian is not as annoying. Melman and Gloria get more nuance to their characters as well when a romantic plot develops between the two. You'll see the first movie a little higher than this one, but Madagascar: Escape to Africa is an enjoyable addition to the series. There is so much potential on the screen with Mickey 17, from the high budget to the top tier actors and director Bong Joon-ho, but it just never meshes together. The main issue is the pacing. It starts off fast before screeching to a halt, just to pick up again. The movie undersells Mark Ruffalo's character as the villain, which contributes to the story issues. I do like their performances, especially Robert Pattinson and Naomi Ackie. I thought the use of voiceover was creative and enhanced the movie, but did feel like a little much at times. Overall, the pieces were there, but they just never got assembled.
The movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood got me into film, and I felt for years like I owed to Tarantino to watch a few blaxploitation films, especially one starring Pam Grier. Foxy Brown is a wild hour-and-a-half ride with a killer opening sequence, great action scenes, and interesting race and gender dynamics. The movie is really made by Pam Grier, whose energy can be felt beyond the screen. Almost every other actor across the board is terrible, making scenes without Foxy Brown tough to get through. I do like that Foxy goes through plenty of challenges on her road to revenge, but her being sexually abused in particular was a tough watch. It's made better by her getting revenge on her abusers, but it still rubbed me the wrong way. A lot of the language in the film doesn't age well either, and the movie will continue to only get more antiquated with time.
Eye in the Sky is another film I had to watch for my war ethics class, and interestingly was Alan Rickman's final movie. The plot is very simple but realistic. An airstrike is being ordered on Al-Shabaab terrorists, but an innocent girl will be killed in the bombing. Should the strike be ordered? Both Helen Mirren and Alan Rickman carry their weight as they go back and forth on the ethicality of their situation, and the rest of the cast does their job too. The settings and the visuals aren't the most interesting, but it's a function of the story being contained within a decision room in an armed forces vehicle. Again, the movie isn't complicated or jaw-dropping, but still a good watch. The 2025 remake of The Running Man has some great moments, including an amazing second act full of action, intrigue, and world building. The early parts of Ben Richards' run are so expertly crafted and portrayed visually, using space as a device to advance the story. The movie does suffer from a lackluster and prolonged ending, one that tonally feels different from the rest of the movie. Amelia ends up feeling like a waste of time whenever she's on screen, not because she's not a worthy inclusion, but rather because she doesn't get developed enough. I haven't read the Stephen King novel that The Running Man was adapted from, so I don't know how true to the book this adaptation is. All I know is that there are some cool explosions, intense emotions, and questionable writing choices. Everyone is doing each other out in the Mexican countryside. We got subtext about class and globalization, road trip goodness. Y Tu Mamá Tambien is one captivating flick. The relationships between the three main characters are crafted with care, which allows us to understand the personal growth narratives and sexual journeys the movie displays later on. The landscapes and locations shot throughout Y Tu Mamá Tambien are stunning, made better by the great cinematography. On the sex scale, it's not as bad as Anora, but I still take issue with it.
The primary issue is that the movie has such a powerful stance on globalization and the native population of Mexico, but the sex focuses the commentary on homoeroticism and masculinity. As such, I think a lot of the meaning gets lost for the viewer, and it's clearly a feature that takes more than one watch to understand. Omar Gatlato is a day in the life of main character Omar, an average Algerian man who works an average job and lives with an average family. Sounds like a boring movie, but several things keep the viewer on their toes. Omar consistently breaks the fourth wall, making the movie feel personal, like we're buddies with him. Long, unadulterated footage of soccer matches and plays root us in post-colonial Algerian life. The movie at times feels more like an Anthony Bourdain episode than a movie, and the intrigue comes from the culture the movie shows off. It's not without detriment, though. The pacing is very slow, caused by some boring, non-consequential scenes that are drawn out. Another issue is that the love subplot starts too late, and I wish it was introduced early in the film so that the ending could serve as a proper bookend. Cheryl Dunya, who was a film student at UCLA when she made The Watermelon Woman, employs a host of unique cinematic devices that I feel ambivalent towards. These include title card transitions and breaking the fourth wall. The pacing can vary quite a bit in certain scenes, and many of the performances lack authenticity. While fixing these factors would enhance the viewing experience, The Watermelon Woman ultimately flourishes despite its flaws. In exploring the life of the Watermelon Woman, the film metatextually considers the complicated role that Black, female, and queer people have played in cinema. The movie is an important vessel for discussing third-wave feminism in the context of cinema, and the joy of the Watermelon Woman lies in the audience's rumination on social issues, which makes the movie informative and entertaining despite its rough edges. The first thing we have to talk about with The Brutalist are the visuals, which were notably shot on VistaVision. The choice adds a unique flair to the cinematography, and I thought it fleshed out some of the less busy shots in the film. VistaVision isn't the only quirk of The Brutalist, as the movie features a 15-minute intermission halfway through the 3-hour story. The intermission was well needed given how long the film is, and although I try not to complain about the length of a movie, I think The Brutalist is too long given the content we get. The pacing is also undoubtedly slow at times, often brilliantly adding to tension, but other times making the movie a slog to get through. The chemistry between Adrian Brody and Guy Pearce is off the charts, with their interactions being the best the feature has to offer. Their relationship, and Laszlo Toth's life by extension, is a showcase of the American dream's dark underbelly. In full, The Brutalist is one of the best depictions of how tough the immigrant experience can be in America. First off, can we give a shout out to Scott Joplin's The Entertainer, used affluently throughout the sting? Between the ragtime sounds, title cards, set design, costume design, and more, the charm of The Sting is off the charts. Every casting choice feels perfect for their roles, especially Robert Redford, who plays Johnny Hooker, and Robert Shaw, who plays Lonigan. Shaw is a bit more prone to overacting, but it's fun and ridiculously funny overacting. There is an issue with repetition throughout the film. Every chase scene feels the same, and every time the protagonist duo swindled someone at the betting parlor, I got a feeling of deja vu. Color grading was a little whack as well, as it's designed to comport with the 1930s look, but it just looks ugly. It feels like people have forgotten The Sting as time has gone on, and it's a shame that it took the death of Robert Redford for this film to get a little more love. If you like football, you're going to like ESPN's 30 for 30 on SMU's player paying scandal. Pony Excess does a great job painting the big picture that was the 80s college football landscape before honing in on Southern Methodist, including the players that played there, the staff that worked there, and the sports writers who knew something was up. There's a lot of diversity and opinion among the interviewees, which means the documentary seamlessly covers differing perspectives on the SMU scandal. The worst part of Pony Excess by far is the editing. There's too much jumping around and it's unnecessarily fast-paced, making it a bit unapproachable at times. It's a great watch if you care about sports, but if not, it might be too much for you. Hey guys, if you're seeing this message, that means you've made it halfway through the video. That means you must be loving the content. So if you're not subscribed, I'd appreciate it if you gave me subscribe or a like or a comment or anything. Just anything to help out the channel. It just encourages me to make more content. And my pleas right now aren't getting to you. Maybe my impression of Alan from Smiling Friends will. You should subscribe to the channel. Thank you. Happy Go Lucky is a movie I relate to heavily. Main character Poppy has a similar outlook on life as I, although her optimism is hyperbolic, which can make the zany situation she's in a bit unrealistic. She has the perfect foil in Scott, who is pessimistic and the antithesis of Poppy's character. Scott's dialogue is expertly crafted, but I'm lukewarm on his character development. I would have liked to see a quicker change in his character, and him acting similar from scene to scene makes the driving lessons a bit repetitive. The movie is great, though, for a rainy day. One of the wackiest stories in sports history is that of the Jamaican bobsled team, who against all odds competed at the 1988 Winter Olympics in Calgary. Cool Runnings depicts this odd tale, but falls into the common trap of embellishing details when adapting for the screen. I wish that the characters in the narrative were truthful to real life, but there's still some great content in the movie. The characters, although they're written in a way that feeds into Jamaican stereotypes, have great chemistry, making a comprehensive ensemble cast. The sets sell both Jamaica and Calgary, and the switch from one locale to the other is seamless, and leads to some of the best jokes in the movie. Disney was definitely the perfect producer for Cool Runnings, as the more zany moments are handled with a childish flair, yet serious moments produce good moral conclusions. Cool Runnings is a great movie for adults looking to watch something with their children, as the movie brings with it historical and athletic intrigue. There's a lot packed into A Woman is a Woman's 48-minute runtime, including a few musical numbers, fourth wall breaking, baby making, and all that French New Wave goodness. These directorial choices are fun, but at times random, and I wish Godard had a more cohesive vision for when he should add these elements. It kind of feels like when YouTubers add random-ass transitions into their videos, it just doesn't make sense. The best part of the movie is the dialogue, which makes characters Angela, Emile, and Alfred feel genuine along with their interactions. I specifically love Angela and Emile's scenes when they talk with their books. It's just so endearing but equally funny. The use of space throughout the film is also amazing, with characters weaving in and out of frame, rooms changing based on lighting, and whatnot. Woman is a Woman has that special new wave flair, and Godard made the movie like no other. Eclectic but warm like most Wes Anderson films, The Royal Tenenbaums details the bizarre life of the Tenenbaums using Anderson's traditional style. The cinematography and set design is top-notch, giving the movie a charming feel similar to staring at a nativity scene. I think the pacing can be a little slow, especially towards the beginning and end, and watching Richie and Margot's storyline develop is a bit uncomfortable. It's not a knock on the performances. Across the board, every actor plays their part spectacularly. It's just the brother-sister romance concept that I'm not a fan of. A feel-good story that sneaks in a few stabs to the heart along the way, Song Sung Blue is a weirdly wild ride of a biopic. From major successes to out-of-left-field downturns, I experienced a wide range of emotions during the film, but these rushes were abrupt. I wish that the transitions between different tones were executed better, slower perhaps. The theater I watched Song Sung Blue in was full of elderly people, and by the reaction of the crowd, they expected the same easy feeling I did. Hugh Jackman and Kate Hudson are both stellar in their performances as Lightning and Thunder respectively, proving both still have the chops. The cinematography feels equally quaint and bombastic, which for a biopic about a tribute band feels appropriate. This was the last film I watched to close out 2025, and I was satisfied with my experience. For how much work popular culture has done to make the Arab terrorist stereotype stick, the Palestinian film Paradise Now subverts it by portraying the genuine, intense emotions of two Palestinian childhood friends selected to carry out a suicide bombing in Tel Aviv. There's a realness not often displayed from the aggressor's point of view, which I think works, but I equally have issues with the development of our protagonist's motivations. Saeed goes from averse to the bombing to being gung-ho on the suicide mission, and I don't think the narrative gives enough time for the change. While I denounce terrorism, I think the movie does a good job giving dimensionality to terrorist acts. Jennifer Grey and Patrick Swayze are back together, this time dancing in the Catskills of New York rather than fighting in the mountains of Colorado. Their performances in Dirty Dancing are way better, and the performances of the supporting characters deliver as well. The choreography of the dancing really sells the atmosphere, made better by the strong ballroom and mambo skills of Swayze and Grey. Dirty Dancing has a lot to say about the 60s, womanhood, and abortion, all of which is presented soundly. The issue comes with the 60s immersion. It doesn't work. The haircuts and some of the outfits are straight out of the 80s, and the music oscillates between 60s gems and 80s pop hits. For a movie so rooted in a specific time and culture, it falls short of the true 60s representation, hurting my enjoyment of the film. Now talk about a movie that gets the 60s right. American Graffiti is entrenched in everything 1962. From the movies, to the small town feel, to the teenage lingo, it's the perfect representation of the era. I like how real-life anonymous DJ Wolfman Jack is weaved into the plot, making the immersion that much better. You can't talk about American Graffiti without talking about the soundtrack, which has been consistently named one of the best in film history. The music is truly ubiquitous with the movie. It's probably the child actor of it all, but some of their acting feels a bit stiff and disingenuous. The ending is also a little weird, killing off multiple of the kids by telling us they die in the future. It adds to Lucas's overall thesis that there's a certain nostalgia for pre-Vietnam America, but the ending does feel abrupt. I personally like it, but could see why others hate it. As a movie-going experience, Past Lives doesn't feel like one. Rather, it feels like reading a novel. Everything that stems from the writing is amazing. The dialogue is so rich, so nuanced, and the characterization sells the plot easily. To add on, the relationship that Nora has with both boys are designed so organically, most of which can be contributed to the plot structure and dialogue. All of this upside is a welcome addition, but it covers up a glaring issue persistent throughout the film. The visuals are so lackluster. In a narrative where place is important as ever, New York City doesn't get explored enough outside of establishing shots. The interior of Nora and Arthur's apartment is desolate, less decorated than an IKEA. I wish the movie did more with its space and its characters within that space. I still like the movie. After all, the personal narratives are top shelf, but I wish everything around it, both production and pre-production, meshed with the story. I referenced Risky Business when speaking on The Girl Next Door, which was highly inspired by the former film. I talked about the two dialectically, but Risky Business does have its own pros and cons. The acting of Tom Cruise and Rebecca De Mornay is solid. Joel Goodson is, well, good, a stand-up guy and academic. Lana is the prostitute with a little more to her than meets the eye, similar to Elizabeth Shue's character in Leaving Las Vegas. The two do a great job fulfilling their roles, but there is a sterility to their relationship. The iconic scene where the two bum on the subway to Phil Collins in The Air Tonight is undermined by the lack of chemistry between the two. It's still an iconic scene, but could have been better. Guido is a subpar antagonist, and any scenes with him feel inconsequential as Joel deals with his real antagonists, his parents. Another iconic scene is Cruise's dance to old-time rock and roll by Bob Seger, forever burned into the minds of many. The best part of the whole movie is the subtle socioeconomic commentary, as the movie showcases Reagan-era attitudes towards individualistic pursuits of wealth. I can't deny my biases when talking about city lights. I'm so used to Hollywood productions with CGI and meticulously planned shots and bombastic soundtracks that the silent films are not the easiest to watch. I was at times bored with this film, but to the credit of City Lights, it largely kept me not only entertained but laughing. It's amazing how the jokes hold up almost 100 years later due to many of them being built on visual humor. Charlie Chaplin was such an impressive physical actor and truly a king of the silent era. The plot is sweet, following Chaplin's little tramp character as he tries to romance a blind girl. The orchestrated music was a bit much at times, but you can't ask much else from a film made in 1931. This movie has inspired me to delve deeper into Charlie Chaplin's oeuvre. Love Actually has a lot of ingredients, 9 mini-plots to be exact, but the parts largely come together to make a great stew of a film. Every story is a deviation of the last, adding a new spice to the Hallmark-esque Christmas romance narrative. A few stand out. Hugh Grant's courting misfortunes as Prime Minister were absurdly hilarious. Two people who fall for each other despite not speaking the same language is an overdone yet endearing plot. Sarah's balance of her romantic desires and her brother's needs is raw, human. Love Actually throws so much at you that you're bound to like something, but you're likely to also not like some things, and chief among my issues with the film was Harry and Karen's plotline. Harry struggling to remain faithful to his wife is antithetical to the rest of the movie's offerings, where we see people brought together by Christmas, not torn apart. It's also ruined by Alan Rickman, who is grating in this film. Another issue I have is how the hell did this kid get past TSA? This is a post 9/11 movie. There's no way that this unathletic 11-year-old was booking it past security. On a more serious note though, this flick is great, one that is perfect to curl up on the couch with and watch at Christmas. Out of all the Knives Out movies, I had weirdly only seen Glass Onion before 2025, and not the first one. The first one is my favorite out of the three for a multitude of reasons. First off, Daniel Craig gives his best performance as Benoit Blanc, as he proves more logical and personable in the original compared to the sequels. Secondly, Knives Out expertly interweaves the plot into the setting. In a mystery, the space a character takes up matters. The film realizes this and always establishes a room a character is in, giving the watcher a greater sense of the evidence at hand. Better than other mystery films, the original Knives Out develops its supporting cast with care, framing characters in terms of relationships. I really love the police interviews that introduced each character, which set up the pieces for the mystery without unnecessary exposition. As for what I don't like, the main protagonist Marta comes out flat compared to other characters. I wish we had more time to explore her family dynamic. If you've ever wondered what the hell the kids are doing in college these days, I had to watch The Battle of Algiers twice for class, making it the only movie I watched more than once this year. The first time was through the lens of examining just war theory, and the second was a critical film analysis, so the two experiences were different. I have to give the movie credit for its accuracy. In a genre where movies can easily blow conflict out of proportion, the movie is truthful to how things went down in Algeria. The editing is great, not forcing the viewers to side with the FLN or the French army, but just showing the raw, factual truth. Matthew Philippe and Ali Lapointe are two amazing characters that serve as foils for each other, and bigger than the movements themselves, the movie is this fascinating chess match between the two of them. The second half of the movie, more specifically after the French show up, is on the slower side, and each new bombing or shooting fails to bring new nuance to the visuals. Still, The Battle of Algiers threads the needle between being informative historical fiction and an entertaining watch. The 2025 installment of Superman provides nothing different plot-wise from other Superman stories, but that's not a bad thing. The narrative is sound, both David Cornsweet and Rachel Brosnahan fit the essence of their roles, and the effects are just great. My biggest complaint falls on the development of Lex Luthor's character, where I wish we would have gotten a little more background from him. It relies on the viewer bringing in knowledge about the Luthor and Superman dynamic, which shouldn't be a barrier in a reboot. The movie still does the franchise justice though, and brings a fresh flair to Clark Kent's legacy. Irreverent, kooky, and not too serious, Phantom of the Paradise takes the traditional Phantom of the Opera and makes it part musical, part horror, and part comedy. The editing is a lot, too much at times, and I wish the movie took more time to develop beef. On the plus side, the music is incredibly catchy and diverse, ranging from 60s surf rock to classical. The set design has that special 70s futuristic aesthetic seen in movies like Logan's Run and Rollerball, which creates an air of nostalgia, but also ages the movie quite heavily. Casablanca is a classic, and for good reason. The story is so richly rooted in history, a history that was concurrent with the production of the film. It makes the movie feel like one of the only fictitious historical documents in cinematic history. The orchestral music that overlays Casablanca's most important moments is beautiful, only adding to the fervor of the acting. Speaking of acting, it's class. Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman were two of the best performers in 40s Hollywood, and it shows throughout the film. My only issue is with the pacing, which I find a bit slow in the beginning. It also takes a cultural context of World War II to watch, maybe more obvious in 1942, but not now. This year was the third year in a row I've seen Chungking Express, this time to show my father. Each time I've liked the movie less and less, but that's not to say it isn't good. In fact, it's great. As with all Wong Kar-wai movies, the late-night ambiance is unmatched, although one of my complaints is that the second half of the bifurcated narrative switches to daytime, which feels abrupt. The narration only adds to this ambiance, as the writing mimics those late-night thoughts you get while staring at the ceiling. The music is a bit hit or miss for me, as songs like Things in Life and What a Difference a Day Made accentuate my enjoyment, while California Dreaming is used way too much, despite being part of the plot. My opinion on Chungking Express and other Wong Kar-wai movies tend to fluctuate, so we'll have to see how I feel about the flick next time I see it. Many may ridicule me for placing Madagascar above tons of films I've already talked about, but what the hell, Madagascar is just so goddamn funny. The jokes are so well crafted, not only for children but for adults too. Each character is developed well from the start, both through the narrative and the movie's comedy. Some standout characters include Alex, Gloria, Mort, and of course, the Penguins. These guys were so hilarious that they got their own television show. The big issue with Madagascar is its animation, being less polished than rival animated films of the time such as The Incredibles. Also, the I Like to Move It song is just insufferable, and I wanted to pour cement in my ears every time I heard it. Still, Madagascar stands the test of time as a fun, lighthearted comedy for children and adults alike. Separation was the first movie that we watched for my Middle Eastern cinema class, and it set the tone for the semester to come. The drama is off the charts, accentuated by the precise script and the amazing delivery of dialogue. This drama is driven by the sick father of Nader and the baby of Razé, the caretaker of the sick father. The focus on these two occurs primarily in the front half before discarding them in the latter half, which left a hole in the narrative that did feel uncomfortable. I wish these two were featured more towards the end of the film. A Separation has tons to say about immigration, gender, religion, and more in Iran, and I enjoyed delving into these topics foreign to me. It's a powerful movie, so it's understandable why it won Best Foreign Language Film at the Academy Awards. Alexandria Why is a semi-autobiographical depiction of director Yusuf Shaheen's teenage life in World War II Alexandria. Mohsen Mohe-Eldin steals the show as main character Yehia, whose love for film and drive to study in America is infectious. The editing choices are amazing, from the real-life footage of World War II's North African campaign to the use of Glenn Miller's Moonlight Serenade and In the Mood. I love Glenn Miller. There is some weird audio mixing throughout the movie, but it's a minor issue at most. Other plotlines consist of a gay romance between a British soldier and the uncle of main character Yehia, as well as the movement of a Jewish Egyptian to Palestine, which provides a unique retrospective commentary on Zionism. There is an indubitable warmness and innocence to Alexandria Why, despite also providing a view on a lost age in Egyptian history. Roadhouse is the backwoods, redneck version of a Bruce Lee movie. Patrick Swayze's performance as Tai Chi, philosophy degree bouncer James Dalton is the highlight, but I think the movie also has a valid message about the dangers of big-time development in small American towns. The movie does show its age with its cinematography, but there's still a lot to love visually. Roadhouse is the perfect movie to catch on TV one day, if people still do that. Scream effectively satirizes the horror genre while providing a potent story for non-horror buffs. Ghostface Killer is iconic, and it was refreshing to watch a horror flick driven by people's actions instead of the supernatural or psychological themes affluent in horror today. I do think that there was room for character development for some of the more ancillary characters, but it is a horror movie, so what can you really expect? I did thoroughly enjoy my experience with Scream, but I think I would have liked it even more if I was a bigger fan of the genre. In America's current political climate, it's reassuring to know that movies such as One Battle After Another are standing on their theses. Paul Thomas Anderson's film is so impactful and so mirroring of contemporary issues that I wonder if this will actually age the film poorly, but I wouldn't change the commentary for the world. Tiana Taylor and Chase Infinity embodied the declarant nature of the feature so well, and Leonardo DiCaprio and Sean Penn play their parts well too. The performances are just so good that they absolve the movie of its problems, the primary faults being the editing and narrative visibility. On narrative visibility, I think the movie would benefit from more development of the Christmas Adventurers Club, who plays a bigger role than the screen gives them time for. Still, it's time to chalk up another W for Paul Thomas Anderson, who has once again proven to be one of the best in the game. I only rewatched the second Kill Bill this year, and I think each movie is better if watched as two different experiences. The pacing of the first movie is a little slow, but this movie has the opposite effect, wrapping up way too quickly. Volume 1 has samurai sword fighting, while Volume 2 is kung fu. I think both Kill Bills are over-edited to hell, but at least the second isn't as bad as the first. The second movie has weaker action choreography than the first, but it's still strong. Where the second Kill Bill comes into its own, though, is through its dialogue. The exchanges between Beatrix Kiddo and Pai Mei, as well as the back and forth between Beatrix and Bill, are on the edge of your seat interactions. We also get more background context than the first movie, for better or for worse. While most consider the first Kill Bill better, my rewatch made me question that. I genuinely don't know. One of the more underrated depictions of mental illness is Silver Linings Playbook. This movie doesn't sugarcoat anything, just how things are. A space is given to understand bipolar disorder, depression, and OCD's nuances, which is just awesome. Jennifer Lawrence and Bradley Cooper have great chemistry, and no matter if their characters are fighting or getting along, the passion pops out on the screen. The film's plot isn't complicated, but it doesn't have to be. Also, an extra point is added in my book for the plot revolving around football, which you guys know I love. Waltz with Bashir is an autobiography of sorts for director Ari Folman, who reconciled with his role in the Sabra and Shatila massacres in Lebanon. The animation is crude and confrontational, forcing the audience to live through Folman's PTSD as well. The film is not as straightforward as I expected, and instead gives a serious topic a dreamlike quality, which for me recontextualized how I can learn about war. Like many, I think the movie fails to denounce Israel's role in killing Muslims in Lebanon, but it still does good on acknowledging the massacres and gives room for them. I can't believe it took me 6 years to watch Parasite, a film that came out right around the time I became interested in cinema. The plot is so simple, so straightforward, yet the members of both families have incredible depth. It's amazing how there's a slow but intricate setup and an equally slow but suspenseful unraveling. Ultimately, the movie fluctuates within a band of appropriate paces that elongate the heightened moments. The ending is crazy, both conceptually and in terms of stylistics, and it end caps the movie perfectly. There's another Bong Joon-ho film that I like more, and you'll see that pop up towards the top of the list. That doesn't take away from Parasite, however, an amazing flick. The James Bond spy thriller genre can often suffer from stale, rehashed plots, but Charlie's Angels does just enough to deviate from the norm. Everything goes right for the titular girls, but a feeling of unease filled me as things seemed too easy for them. And I was right. The plot twist goes down, and the stakes are brilliantly raised. The fight scenes are effortlessly choreographed, the girls are characterized well, and the soundtrack is banger after banger. I mean, seriously. Groove is in the heart, Turning Japanese, Barracuda, You Make Me Feel Like Dancing, all the small things. Charlie's Angels had me vibing the whole time. I do wish that the screen time of each angel was more balanced. It seems like we got a lot of Lucy Liu in the first half, then tons of Drew Barrymore in the second half. It's a small complaint about an otherwise rockin' flick. Alright. Time to talk about Dazed and Confused, possibly one of the most poignant flicks ever made about high school culture. The movie forces you to think like a teenager, framing personalities and relationships in terms of cliques and popularity. Adam Goldberg's the lovable loser, Ben Affleck's the super senior, Matthew McConaughey is pretty much himself. Status is the driver of characterization. We follow groups from spot to spot, making the audience feel as if they're in the car going to these places, and seeing old and new people pop up adds to the hectic nature. All of this adds to the live-life attitude of the film, which affects both the viewer and the characters on screen. Finally, it's rewarding to see the right people win. Mitch, Sabrina, Tony, and Wooderson are among the most endearing characters in the film, and they all have great arcs throughout the story. I don't watch F1, I don't know anything about F1, but maybe I should because I really enjoyed this year's F1 movie. The film does great work crafting personal narratives in the Formula One space, a space that from my understanding doesn't naturally produce big, dynamic personalities. The main three performances from Brad Pitt, Kerry Condon, and Damson Idris are all strong, although it was uncanny to see Pitt in the Unk role when he's played the young buck many times. With a racing movie, you gotta get the sound right, and the audio experience in theaters was second to none, with intoxicating engine revs and a banger soundtrack. The cinematography was pretty rad too, especially during crash scenes. Despite a simple and predictable story, F1 delivers on practically every front. It definitely sparked my interest in the sport. There's something for everyone in Sinners, a film that acts as a richer, more culturally relevant, and let's be real, better vampire feature than From Dusk Till Dawn. The cinematography, costumes, acting, it all produces an immersion into the past of the Mississippi Delta. The music accentuates this immersion, but it also serves as part of the plot, building an intersection between soundtrack and narrative. The characters in Sinners are expertly crafted across the board, designed to be complex and multifaceted, most of them good but not great people. Ultimately, what's so interesting about Sinners is that the movie accomplishes these things as a vampire flick, which can often lack proper characterization and narrative depth. As the last act of the movie dives into defeating the vampires, we lose the richness that defines the first 60% of the film. That being said, the slaying of the supernatural foes is still super cool, but I wish the historical energy was kept till the end. I lastly have to give a shout out to the final scene set in 1992, which provides some much needed closure while still creating new intrigue. When I watched Stand By Me at the start of the year, I couldn't have imagined that the auteur behind such a classic would die to close out 2025. Rip to Rob Reiner, one of the best directors to ever do it. Stand By Me is a standout of his, capturing a time and place with unbridled nostalgia just as strongly as American Graffiti. Adding to the feel-good atmosphere is the music, which, once again like American Graffiti, encapsulates the era so well. The chemistry between both the older boys and younger boys is remarkable, reminding me of the relationships I had with other men at different stages in my life. I particularly found the acting of Corey Feldman to be endearing, and that's who I'd be if I were one of the 4 kids. The story is surprise, surprise, adopted from Stephen King, but it does a great job in doing so. The adventure is dynamic, with obstacles being varied and memorable, and the payoff, the ending, it's so remarkable. If there's a movie that embodies boyhood, it's this one, and for that, Stand By Me will always be special to me. Just like F1, I know nothing about K-pop, but again, maybe I should because K-pop Demon Hunters was a blast. The main appeal is the music, and yeah, there's some bangers. Golden is a song that stuck out to me as exceptionally catchy, which makes sense because I recognized it from its use on TikTok. The story is no slouch either, with the concept of K-pop bands battling for the fate of the world having a weird absurdist slant that I find funny. Our 3 main girls have just enough complexity for their dynamic to work, and while I wish we got more on the backstories of their demon adversaries, we got a lot of constructive world building from Jinu's story. The one thing that bothers me about K-pop Demon Hunters is how many questions it leaves unanswered. What is life like in the demon world? What about the previous hunters? And who is Rumi's father? I kept waiting for these answers, but there was never much payoff. Maybe that leaves some door opens for a sequel, which I will be looking forward to. Harrowing, depressing, and a big middle finger to America. Turtles Can Fly feels on par with Miyazaki's Grave of the Fireflies and Elim Klimov's Come and See, yet Turtles Can Fly has more to say about the American industrial machine, mainly about the false idea that America is the protectors of other nations. Every single actor in this movie was an actual refugee during the American invasion of Iraq. Most of them had never acted or seen movies before. Considering how many impressive performances there are, it's equally amazing and shocking that that's the case. In particular, Satellite stands out as a character so well developed by the dialogue and acting. This is the type of movie you only watch once because of how sad it makes you, but the impact of Turtles Can Fly will stick with me forever, especially when thinking about Bush-era shock and awe. I had the pleasure of watching Mulholland Drive for the first time ever in theaters. I haven't gone a day without thinking about the film. There's so many iconic scenes, from This Is the Girl, to the cowboy, to Club Silencio, to the diner scene. It's all amazing. I like a little David Lynch, though he can sometimes be a little much, yet Mulholland Drive feels like his just right movie. The film is so poignant in detailing the expectations of Hollywood versus the dark reality, one that hasn't been explored much outside of this film. This depiction of Hollywood's ugly side would be impossible without the lighting and cinematography, which is absolutely stunning. David Lynch nails promoting that sinking feeling in your gut, the one that tells you something is terribly wrong. I can't wait until the next time I can watch Mulholland Drive or any David Lynch film in theaters. Unlike Relay, The Usual Suspects is a clinic on how to execute a plot twist ending. The film introduces just enough doubt from the viewer to make a plot twist reasonable and believable. I think the frame narrative utilizing verbal Kent's interrogation also helps produce the plot twist ending, as it provides the opportunity to utilize unreliable narration, structural absence, and more. It's also captivating how the events that happen in the present change the interpretation of what happens in the past. The 5 criminals of The Usual Suspects play off each other well, each crafted to bring different things to the table. Additionally, every moment is incredibly memorable from the initial lineup to the final getaway. In one word, All About Lily Shoo Shoo is ethereal. The music, the cinematography, the acting, the lighting, it all seems so heavenly. But the plot isn't. The plot is dark, lascivious, and one of the best portrayals of the challenges of the teenage years. This isn't the only dichotomy in the movie. For one interesting theme that I loved exploring is the emergence of technology in rural Japan. If I have one gripe with this movie, it's that the portrayal of sex crimes can appear excused due to the trauma of the abuser. I think Awai does too much to make Hoshino the victim in this movie, even if his suffering does have a strong message. It's a small part of the movie, but it's still there, and this issue keeps it out of the top 3. Go moves a million miles an hour, and it only adds to the high-octane plot. I could never quite predict where Go was going, keeping me on my toes. The cinematography, music, writing, editing, everything about this movie undercuts your expectations in a good way. The plot consists of three narratives that interweave, each providing a different perspective on the events of the movie. Each narrative recontextualizes what the viewer has seen before, essentially doing what Pulp Fiction does but better. Every character is designed with just enough nuance to the story to be interesting, while giving space for the rest of the ensemble cast to thrive. The performances make the ensemble cast work, with the actors possessing great chemistry with one another. I have no complaints with Go, and I wish that more people talked about this hidden gem. It's also a non-Christmas Christmas movie similar to Die Hard, which is dope as hell. Begonia is weird, we know that, but the eccentricities are compelling. Jesse Plemons as Teddy is a strange fella, but not unbelievable. There's definitely people like him spouting weird shit on the internet. He also has an intelligent side that contradicts everything we expect from him. Emma Stone as Michelle seems like his foil, normal, well-informed, and put together, but she's also cold and impersonal. They're equally the opposite of each other and the same as each other, and this muddy, ever-changing dynamic between the two is phenomenal. The cinematography is standoffish, which is the perfect vibe for this abnormal tale. I particularly like the constant use of close-up during dialogue, which manufactured an intimacy that heightened tensions. All of these points are inferior, however, to how good the plot twists are. Turn after turn after turn occurs, all of them unpredictable, and it kept me guessing throughout the film. Begonia will be a modern classic. Boy, oh boy, where do I even start? Memories of Murder, you absolute gem of a film. Everything is on point, from the intense and equally hilarious writing, to the stunning cinematography, to the soundtrack that is brilliantly woven into the plot. Much like how I praised All About Lily Shushu for depicting globalization in rural Japan, Memories of Murder does the same in South Korea. It also captures the quaintness of the countryside, which is interrupted by the horrific murders that take place. The visuals are a perfect depiction of a town's collective innocence, and the narrative and dialogue only drive home the seriousness of the feature. Every performance is spectacular, including the detective that just dropkicks the hell out of everyone for whatever reason. And that ending, oh my god. When Song Kang-ho stared into my soul in the final frame of the film, I started questioning whether I was the murderer. You know, I'm not, but seeing Bong Joon-ho incorporate the public into the film makes Memories of Murder that much more meaningful. Five Broken Cameras, a documentary following the life of citizens in a West Bank village, reshaped my perspective on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Instagram graphics are just graphics, reports are just secondhand narration. Most of what we know about the war between Israel and Palestine is divorced from the people of both countries, but Five Broken Cameras isn't. The movie probes the unfortunate lives of Palestinians in the West Bank as Israeli citizens settle on their land, showing everything. Things we thought we knew, things we didn't know, and the things that were unfathomable to us. The movie is not about Israel's actions, but the effects of Israeli settlement on the people of Palestine. That's what Five Broken Cameras taught me. That conflicts are not about governments and armies, but rather citizens. We only talk about war in terms of battles and leaders because they are more visible and accessible than the people living through tenuous times. Throughout Five Broken Cameras, I felt a kinship towards the youngest son of filmmaker Imad Bernat, who despite being worlds apart, grew up at the same time as me. Seeing what his son went through made me incredibly thankful for my life and my childhood. At its core, Five Broken Cameras is a Palestinian resistance film, but there is a catch. The movie was co-produced by Israeli Guy Davidi, who to this day claims the movie is not Palestinian cinema or Israeli cinema, but somewhere in between. The presence of both Palestinian and Israeli contributors ultimately muddies the agency of the Palestinian voice, yet the ability for Bernat and Davidi to make a film together shows that connection and rectification is always possible. There's a few common directors whose works function as a gateway into cinema, and Christopher Nolan is one of those auteurs. Inception and Interstellar are among the two most cited films by friends I've talked to about what movies got us into the medium, and I was always ashamed to tell them I had never seen Inception. Of course, I had seen other Nolan films, the Dark Knight trilogy, The Prestige, Oppenheimer, but there was a gap in my Nolan knowledge. Well, there no longer is, because I watched Inception and I loved it. There's an all-star cast full of heavy hitters, from Leonardo DiCaprio to Marion Cotillard to Joseph Gordon-Levitt to Elliot Page, and every single one of them delivers. Each one plays their part so well, and their acting is aided by how the script organically develops each character. The world of Inception is of course our world, but with a small twist, although that small twist brings forth so much world building that the film handles expertly. The visuals are a huge part of this, but the music plays an integral part too. I actually sat through a lecture this past fall given by a digital humanities professor who spoke about Inception's soundtrack, and one thing he talked about was the speed of the score slowing down, becoming more distorted the more layers the group went down into. It's those small details that make the movie for me, for there's an extreme level of care given to this flick. And of course we have to talk about the ending, which leaves everything up in the air and keeps the viewer thinking. It's absolute peak. Everything about this movie is, and it'll be one of my favorites for a long, long time.